we're a membership organization by CVCs for CVCs. So for us to learn what's important for you helps us do a better job for you, I think. But what I wanted to try and do is pick up a few of the threads that Nicola started to talk about, the yin and the yang, and give a sense of where we are, given that fundamentally we're in quite an epochal moment of change. GCV, as Charlie says, we try and do broadly three things as well as we can. We do the news and analysis reports, the data. Maya, as editor, has brought out the sort of latest power list. We do the community events, primarily in the OECD countries, for communities everywhere from Brazil to California, from London to Tokyo. And then the third, the GCV Institute has trained more than 1,000 CVCs over the past 5 years on how to land the value, how to organize and set up and operate. But obviously, this is all done in a wider context. That context is geopolitical risks arising. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, felt like sort of globalization and capital flows would flow more easily. Now sovereignty is back. We're seeing more governments investing more frequently in startups, whether it's the US government in Intel taking a 10% stake to everywhere from China, and tech sovereignty, of course, in the UK and Europe as well. The other factor is corporate venturing isn't just done in its own silo. It depends on the wider ecosystem, the financial performance, the results, and whether that's the capital markets, both debt and equity being at pretty well much record highs. But also from a tech point of view, this is creating fantastic opportunities. We see the enormous flows of money going particularly to AI, particularly large scale sort of deals. This is very reminiscent, and hat tip to Samir Singh from Breadcrumb VC, who pointed this out to me first. Where we are in the cycle isn't just financial cycle, but it's also a tech cycle combined with a geopolitical. We've never really been in this type of environment before, where the three fundamental factors are at quite febrile points. So what does that mean? What it means is that we're starting to see some fantastic success stories from corporations, from their investments. Of the 8 great US trillion-dollar companies, I'm excluding SpaceX for the moment, but SpaceX actually falls into this category as well, where they get corporate venture backing. 7 of those 8 had CVCs invest in them to help them go. Daimler invested, of course, in Tesla. Microsoft invested in Apple. Amazon invested in Alphabet at the seed range. Sega invested in Nvidia. Interpublic invested in Meta. Broadcom was backed by Intel. Microsoft had a corporate venture client in relationship with IBM. So that support, that understanding for the US firms to help them grow to about $25+ trillion market cap, then means they've got the understanding of how to support other startups that are coming through. So just in Q1, effectively the first 3 months, the first reports this year, the financial performance of these companies' corporate venture capital investments brought about $55 billion of gains to their net income of their parents. So that's financial returns delivered from the exits. February was the largest month in venture history, and CVCs were involved in more than 90% of those deals by value. You see this rise, the importance that you all have in this community, driving the venture ecosystem from 2010, 60 billion or so global venture ecosystem, to more than 600 billion at the peak, 21, 22. Corporations have, despite the pullback, stayed in and increased their proportion of involvement. And of course, we saw it with the 8 greats, but this is written more largely in the ecosystem. February was a record for the exits. Corporate venture capital deals had $258 billion of return in 1 month alone. That's impressive. And it's not a flash in the pan. We'll see this year and other times we'll see that impact. And this is before, obviously, the SpaceX, of which Google will hear from Stephen Kahn, who runs Alphabet's Other Bets division, later this morning. That one deal, is $1 trillion company. It's a $2 trillion company now. Wow. Then also they've backed Cursor, Anysphere, which is just sold for 60 billion. The largest venture-backed deal ever is a roll-up for a now public company. But to go back to that other point, the sort of Carlota Perez sort of view of where we are on the tech cycle, those deals driving those headline numbers are important. They're impressive. They drive our economy. It's a power law-driven ecosystem. But below the surface, what we're starting to see is even more exciting. Are the next opportunities that you all are back in and you all are trying to help bring to life, and as Nicola says, add the value to. So that shift in the computing era towards AI and large language models, will it shift in the next or open source and local models? We're starting to see it happen. We'll see more of it. But below that, AI isn't really a platform itself. It is an input to the platform to come. Just like 15, 20 years ago, the idea of smartphones being the platform that apps and everyone can then carry around and use. Now we're seeing that input come in to a humanoid, robotics, plus AI era where we'll see it around. This is transformational. The next generation, next 10, 15 years, whether it's neuro-robotics in Germany, raising 1.4 billion, the largest venture deal in Germany, all the way through, we're seeing these opportunities happen. And as Nicola very wisely says, just before, this yin and the yang isn't done in silos. Corporates can't work by themselves. They won't add all the value to the entrepreneurs. It's that collaboration that we'll see. And it's not corporate venture capital by itself. It's understanding from the parent company's point of view how these innovation tools can work together. Venture clienting with venture building, with corporate venture capital, actually creates the strength and the ecosystem that can enable you all to support the companies and support the parent company. Budgets are increasing. The tools are joining up. The understanding at the most successful firms on how to use these tools is increasing. From going from a silo to going to a much more holistic ecosystem. That growth in the number of units, Nicola might well be right. We can see an order of magnitude increase over the next decade. It's not a competitive advantage to do corporate venturing anymore. It's a competitive disadvantage if you don't do it and you don't do it well. And of course, that yin and the yang is coming together because corporations tell us through the annual GCV Keystone survey that they are increasingly looking to commit money to the VC funds. If you're a VC and you've got corporates as LP, you're twice as likely to raise your next fund. That impact, that value add, if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking, and she's looking for 5 things, capital, customers, product development, hiring and exit that Nicola talked about, that translates through the VC into those portfolio companies if you have corporates as LP as well as direct investors. And I think Steve Jobs had that phrase in that original sort of tech cycle in the early 80s when we saw the PC coming through, replacing the mainframe era. That this is the question we have to ask. If we're going to grow, do we want to be so-so or do we want to be great? The GCV Power List, the top 100 people within the ecosystem, the titans, the people who've run their corporate venturing unit for more than a decade, less than 1% have that. How do we change that? How do we give them the support and the training to enable them to achieve the goal of making this world a better place? So what does it mean for societies? What does it mean for you all? I think
where we are is that the personal computer is a new medium, and that society and computers are really meeting for the first time in the 80s. In 15 years, it's going to be all over in terms of this first phase, getting these tools out into society in large numbers. But during the next 15 years, if we have an opportunity to do it great or to do it so-so. And what a lot of us at Apple are working on is trying to do it great.
So we'll pause there because that's what I think the vision for us all to achieve together is to make this great. So thank you all. I'm excited for these next sessions, and please join me in bringing back to stage Charlie, who will talk about the next session. So thank you.